As you cross the border into Scotland, you hit some of its most beautiful parts. Closed to visitors because of the pandemic, people have certainly had time to follow the evidence, politics and mudslinging of this inquiry. But for months, there's been little evidence they're moved by it.
I've kind of gave up on the news, to tell you the truth, because I'm just fed up with the whole thing, really.
Because of coronavirus?
Just coronavirus and the whole Alex Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon, you know, it's just... I think there's more important things in life just now than listening to them two, to tell you the truth.
The political controversy at the moment is all between Nicola Sturgeon and Alex Salmond. Are you following that?
You'll never hear the truth of that, so it's pointless following it. It's just lies after lies.
But last weekend saw the first opinion poll in 22 in which support for independence fell to 50-50 after the dizzy heights of 58% last autumn. Not here, of course. Like much of the borders, Langham is solid pro-union Conservative territory. What did you think?
Well, I think somebody's lying.
Do you think it will make a difference to how people think of politics going into the election?
Yeah, I think it should. Well, I hope it does, because it means that there is some people that seem to think we're whiter and white up here, and we're clearly not.
As you head north towards places like Peebles, the SNP has more support, even briefly winning an MP here, Callum Kerr, in the landslide of 2015. He says the big issue here isn't the inquiry, but Brexit.
It's bound to do a little bit of damage. I actually think, though, that we're starting to come out the other side of that. Take, for example, a friend of mine, Graham. He only recently joined the SNP, a matter of weeks ago. And why did he do it? Brexit. I think that it's a natural evolution of a democracy to challenge your institutions, to reinvigorate them. And it's something that, it's positive you do that in Scotland. Don't get me wrong, I don't think this is the way I'd like to see it, but I do think it's part of a healthy process.
I think we've got some challenging of Scotland's institutions going on over here, haven't we? Yeah. Golf isn't really allowed yet.
Yeah.
But down at Portobello Beach today, there's no doubt people are noticing.
I don't know what to think. I'm a big fan of Nicola Sturgeon in particular, and I think she's a woman of integrity.
I don't particularly like either Salmond or Sturgeon, but I think Salmond's got a very good case. He's been badly done to. It's a stitch-up.
There were calls for Nicola Sturgeon to resign last night. I mean, do you think that would be...
the Conservatives, with Boris Johnson and Nick Hancock still in jobs? It's a bit rich, I think, coming from the Conservatives.
If the Scottish Parliament were to try to remove her over the inquiry just a couple of months before an election, how do you think that would go down?
I don't think it would go down well at all.
It will ultimately be that election in May that reveals whether voters believe Salmond or Sturgeon and think it matters. Well, I'm joined now by Ian McWhirter, who's a writer and columnist who supported independence in the past but is critical of the Scottish Government and its treatment of Alex Salmond. How did he come out of this today? I mean, we kept hearing Nicola Sturgeon talking about her hurt and anger at him, that this had been prompted by his behaviour. Does he look like the bitter, angry man she painted him out?
Well, you've got to remember that, first of all, this is not about Alex Salmond. He was exonerated and acquitted of all charges in his trial. This was about the way the Scottish government had handled possibly its most controversial and worst scandal since the start of devolution. In the highest court, the highest civil court in the land, the Scottish government, not Alex Salmond, was found to have behaved unlawfully, unfairly and with apparent bias in what was probably the most sensitive and most difficult investigation that you could imagine, which was into the allegations about a former First Minister.
But when Nicola Sturgeon keeps reminding us of his admitted inappropriate behaviour, where does this leave the voters as they look at this party?
Well, yes, I mean, Nicola Sturgeon did keep returning to this, you know, that he's a bad man, that he behaved inappropriately, even though he was acquitted of all these charges by a criminal court, by a jury, and after a lengthy trial. It's really not about him. This is about the conduct of the Scottish Government and also the prosecution service, which has been brought into question as a result of this scandal. Serious questions being raised, as you know, about the way in which evidence was withheld from this committee, about the dual role of the head of the prosecution service, which is the Lord Advocate, who is also a member of Nicola Sturgeon's cabinet.
But how
These
does this
issues are
play
going
into
to
the
remain
elections?
and will be examined for a very long time after this hearing is over.
Yeah, I mean, a real range of opinion I got just stopping people in the streets. Some people going, COVID's much more important, get on with that. Others saying, no, this is really serious. How is this going to affect me?
Well, the administration, the prosecution service is serious. The Scottish government being ruled that it behaved unlawfully, unfairly and with bias by the highest civil court in the land is serious. You can't escape from that. Now, Nicola Sturgeon, throughout her evidence today, if you'd listened to it, was repeatedly apologising, not for Alex Salmond, but for members of her government, for her civil servants, figures in the Scottish National Party and her officials. The reason she was doing that is because she knows and she accepts that there were catastrophic failures in the way this investigation was handled.
We must leave it there.
And also what happened after the criminal investigation began, which is
we'll see
will be
what
the
the
subject
voters
of
make of it.
further legal matters.
Ian McWhirter, thank you very much.